Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. This is I Am an Open Door, or An Open Door for short, courtesy of Cindy Krupp. We are here to do our regular meeting on Training Wheels, which is the daily lessons of A Course in Miracles. And today is a very fundamental but earth-shattering lesson if it's really taken in its entirety and explored. I'm not going to do a meditation this morning. I'm just going to get into it and what I'm going to do, because this lesson, which I will read at the end after we go through a couple of different teachings from A Course and Ken Wapnick. What this lesson is really about is cause and effect. Most of you who are on this call are familiar with, or on the Zoom call, are familiar with cause and effect. But I'd like to open it up and see if we can go a little bit deeper this morning. So from the text, this is from chapter 2, section 7, and you don't have to turn to that unless you want to. The Christ consciousness says, you may still complain about fear. Nevertheless, persist in making yourself fearful. Before we started this recording, I was saying, I recognize if I really allow myself to sit with what is true, this electrical charge that I have in my body all the time could be described as a form of fear, a low-grade chronic form of fear. It actually contains a ton of energy, huge amount. But this text says we persist in making ourselves fearful. And then it says, I, the Christ consciousness, have already indicated that you cannot ask me to release you from fear. I know it doesn't exist, but you do not. What is in that sentence is extraordinary, to use Reverend Cindy's terminology. It's extraordinary. That right there is a direct teaching that we are the Christ consciousness. The Christ consciousness cannot undo itself. There is no separation. The Christ consciousness cannot teach itself when there is no other self. There is only the fearless, the one who has never known fear, because that's reality. Okay, so it says, I know it doesn't exist, but you do not. Who is the you that it's speaking to here? The small self, right? And then it goes on and really comes down full force with this lesson. If I intervened between your thoughts and their results, I would be tampering with a basic law of cause and effect, the most fundamental law there is. I would hardly help you if I depreciated the power of your own thinking. I would hardly help you if I intervened between your thoughts and their results. We are free to have our thoughts. because we are God consciousness expressing in unique form, in unique expression. But we are all the one. The one does not interfere with itself. It allows absolute freedom to its extensions, to its expressions of itself. That would be insane to intervene with its own thought. That would be like us saying, I need to go to the grocery store. No, I don't need to. Yes, I do need to. No, I don't need. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Do you see what I'm saying? Right? A fundamental law of cause and effect. Right? So that would be in direct opposition to the purpose of this course. It's much more helpful to remind you that you don't guard your thoughts carefully enough. You may feel at this point that it would take a miracle for you to to enable you. It would take a miracle to enable you to guard your thoughts or to be aware of your thoughts. I mean, how many of us have actually heard this sentence? Oh my gosh, are you telling me I need to be continuously aware of my thoughts as much as I can? I can't do that. I could never do that. Yep, that would take a miracle. And yet, what's the intention? If the intention is to know myself as Christ consciousness, of course I can do that. I do it little by little by little, step by step by step during the day. Oh, I'm feeling off balance. What was I just thinking? We do that over and over and over because the desire and the love for truth is what motivates us. The love is what keeps us coming back over and over and over again to, oh, what was I just thinking? Right? You are not used to miracle-minded thinking, but you can be trained to think that way. All miracle workers need this kind of training. That's what we're doing. That's what these daily lessons are. Mind training, right? Yes. So let's look at cause and effect. This is from Ken Wapnick's glossary. And he says, the basic law, the fundamental law of mind is the law of extension, in which a cause extends itself outward in the form of effects. So a basic law of mind, and we can say, just for explanation, the basic law of God's mind, and this is God is, but let's just say God has a mind. The basic law of God's mind is extension, right? It's the law of extension in which it extends itself out into seemingly separate aspects of the one itself. But God is the first and only cause, right? There is only one cause, and that's God. And the very fact, the very reality that God extends itself makes it a cause. This is why a course tells us God, Source, waits for us to know what we are. It is not whole in itself until we awaken to our own true nature. Because Source has extended itself and is only awakening to itself. And there is only one cause, and that is Source, God, Atma, all that is. That is the first and only cause. To say that there is a first cause is redundant. There is only one. The very reality of causing effects establishes cause as it is. We are God's extensions. Change, real change, capital R, real, capital C, change, real change, can only be introduced at the level of cause, not effect. That is why a Course says the ego makes, it doesn't extend. It makes unwhole replications of itself. Only Source, which extends through itself, extends itself wholly. Effects cannot turn around and create their cause as the ego maintains. So this outer world is merely an effect of mind. The only meaningful healing is to heal the cause, which is to heal the mind. The ego has tried to reverse cause and effect, telling us the world and the body are our cause and that we are their effect. This is what science teaches every day. The material world is the cause and everything else is its effect. This is where seek but do not find comes into play. We continuously seek in the world of material form, which is an effect, not a cause. We spend lifetimes, literally lifetime over lifetime, trying to change and understand the outer world and avoid going inward and looking to where the outer world, what the outer world manifests from, right? How many people spend their entire existence trying to change the outer world and never look inward, where at the source from which this outer world is created? The ego is not endowed with creative power. It is never a cause. That's why the ego can't have any real effects. That's why fear is not real. That's why every bad thing you ever thought you've done, you've never done. So we prove the ego is baseless when we ignore the fear and we turn to our real cause, which is infinite, indivisible, formless, intimate I am awareness. And we identify with that over and over and over and over again. So let's turn to this lesson, having this as our foundation. Now let's look at this lesson. We're on lesson 17. And it says, it's actually a fairly short lesson. I see no neutral things. Last week, we learned we have no neutral thoughts. And because what we think is reflected in what we see, we also see no neutral things. We see no neutral things because we have no neutral thoughts. Seems simple enough, but this lesson contains the fundamental idea that thought creates reality. Perception is a mirror. Thought comes before creation. If this were not so, perception would be impossible. We have to think something into existence before we see it in existence. And it happens like that. So quickly, we fail to see the link between thought and what we perceive. What a masterful mind created this illusion. Thought comes before creation. If this were not so, perception itself would be impossible. This may seem complicated if you've never really considered it. Indeed, it's a reversal of everything we've been taught. But all of our previous lessons have been saying the same thing. Our world arises continuously from mind. We recreate our world in every attosecond of existence. We create and then we perceive. We create and then we perceive. Mind is the creator. We are simply seeing our own creation. So today's lesson should be practiced 3 or 4 times for a minute or so. And we can do this now. Let's just shut our screens off, or if you'd like, and then I'll just run us through this and we can do it. So just sit in your seat and keep your eyes open. Don't worry about anything at all. Just go along for the ride. Center yourself in your body through awareness of the breath or through whatever bodily sensation you're feeling. Feel your feet on the floor and your butt in the seat. And just relax. And now just say in your mind, I see no neutral things because I have no neutral thoughts. I see no neutral things because I have no neutral thoughts. Now just look around the room and let your eyes focus softly on the things that you see. As the guides like to tell us, whatever is in your purview. And spend enough time on everything to just notice it. Whatever it is, and say in your mind as you notice it, I do not see a neutral pencil, or I do not see a neutral curtain, or I do not see a neutral rug or hand, whatever it is you're focusing on right now. My thoughts about this thing, whatever that is, are not neutral. So, for example, I do not see a neutral body, plant, pencil, computer, rug, calendar, because my thoughts about bodies, computers, rugs, calendars are not neutral. Just do this for a minute. There's one more thing to consider in today's lesson. Don't make any distinctions between what you perceive to be good or bad, what seems to be alive or inanimate. There's no difference in reality. Everything, as we already know, is alive with energy. It's alive with an energy, as Helen Hamilton has shown us over and over again, with energetics that we can't see. Physics tells us that all seemingly solid matter is composed of electrons that are continuously pulsing in and out of wave-particle duality. That we don't perceive this with our eyes makes it no less true. All around us, everything is pulsing in and out of existence. It sounds like science, it sounds like magic, but it's all a production of a mind. This lesson is about cause and effect. Our world is a creation of group thought. It's a creation at a level of mind above our own small self. And each of us has our own small self's experience of it. This is a fundamental lesson about cause and effect. So while we can say this world is a world we share because it's created out of a level of mind above the small self, the healing of this world starts at the level of the small self, because each one of us has to undo the dream at the level we find ourselves. And that's why this lesson is a fundamental lesson. When you're ready, come on back and we can talk about it. Cindy, I could see you going like this the whole time.
There's so much energy moving through this form right now that it's painful not to move. And so I'm not resisting it.
So how is that for you, that lesson, that whole experience?
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
Um, at one point, well, I agree about this low level vibratory like fear that seems to be part of the small self's experience.
Mhm.
At one point, you used the word ignore the fear. And what came up for me is something that I learned from Joel Goldsmith, which was to to be present to the fear or the sense of separation or illness, but to deny its power. And I
Yeah,
wonder if you could comment on
thank
that.
you. Well, I would just say whatever you just said. That's right. It's not ignore the fear. I think it's really transmute it or see it in a different way. And so thank you for that correction. I really appreciate that because I didn't mean to ignore it. And I'd like to just elaborate a little bit, and I really appreciate your question because I don't think it's really fear anymore. I think it's power. I think it's really a fear of the enormous presence that wants to be known And the small self is going, no, no, no. But it's really, it feels like fear, but it doesn't mean it is fear. It's actually, whoa, it's way, way more than that. You know, my teacher Zoe Marai used to say, "You're our parent," and she would say our mother oftentimes, can learn to exist, learn to survive at a certain frequency of vibration. And whenever her frequency of vibration was threatened to go higher, she thought she couldn't contain it. She thought it couldn't be held in her body. And so she would resist or push away um, or have some kind of negative reaction. She would have an outburst or something like that. Because when you get into that, when the average human gets into this feeling of needing their vibration, having their vibration rise above what is normal and comfortable, fear does come into play. And so when we see our mother or our parent unable to handle a higher vibration, stress, whatever it's felt in, we get that imprinted into us. It's a wordless, energetic imprint. And because it's wordless, we can never name it. And because we can't name it, it holds power over us. Until we name it and get it out there, it will hold power. But there is one situation where Zoe taught you can rise above this imprint level of vibration, and that's when we feel threatened ourselves. We get really angry. So when we get really angry or we feel really threatened, then we raise our vibration and we lash out. And what she taught was that's actually not healthy. That's misaligned. And it uses your adrenals to raise your vibration rather than spirit. Remember, Zoe would say, when you align spirit all the way through, spirit, body, heart, with the vibration that's coming through, you have full access to everything. You are integrated, but you have to stand in that. And sometimes that can feel like fear. You have to stand in that and let it wash over you and then move from there. And that requires being present in the moment with whatever is arising in you. And that's what raises your vibrational quality. And over time, as we do that, we increase, we raise, and raise it until we actually change our vibration. David Hawkins said you could, in his estimation, you could only raise your vibrational quality by, I forget, Richard probably knows, but it was a certain amount in a lifetime. But this is how it moves. This is how it works. And this is what A Course is teaching us to do. David, what you got, my friend?
Well, what I was thinking about, I've been thinking about a lot of things to do this, but today, but the vibration, as I think Marianne Williamson talked about, we're not afraid of weakness, we're afraid of our power. And that's a very bad synopsis of what she said, but that's kind of, and so, if I'm afraid of the greatness or the power of the oneness, let's call it that. My natural reaction is to hide, and then when I do realize that I'm hiding, then I have shame. I mean, it's probably a likelihood that I have shame and fear and then shame, or I'm ashamed of the fact that I was afraid. And so then maybe I created the ego, or with the help others created the ego, to have some place to hide and not feel, and maybe to rationalize this fear or this self-loathing, this shame that I'm feeling. And so, okay, well, but here I am in the world, and this is kind of sucky, but at least it seemed I've created this as the normal, as a substitute for the being part of the greatness, the oneness, the power. And I'm here. It's almost like I moved out of town and went to lived in a cabin in the woods and declared that it's okay. And when I really want to be in the woods, I really want to be downtown with wherever all the good stuff is. Does that make any sense at all?
David, the reason that I went like this when you started talking, I was absolutely thinking about Marianne Williamson. And I couldn't remember her name, and so I didn't say it. But you said it. You said it. Thank you. That's exactly right. Because when we and I want to address Kendall's comment too. When we do embody the love that we are, the power of love that we are, then we have to step up to the plate, don't we? Yep. Thank you for that reminder, David. You literally just took the words right out of this noggin. Are you complete? Okay, thank you. Barbara. Good morning, my friend. Beloved.
Good morning. I don't know where to begin because I got a blockage right here in my upper chest, and now it's extending and I'm shaking. Maybe I'm not supposed to answer this question. Maybe I'm afraid to answer the question because in my meditation, I am loved. And right now, should I or shouldn't I answer the question? But I'm going to defeat my fear and I'm going to answer the question. I'm wondering, maybe I can't see the neutral thoughts because I'm emphasizing that I am the cause and not the effect.
Keep talking. Say more.
And that's all I got. I want to say more, but I can't. I'm speechless. But if I change my reality, because I can't create, so I have to be the effect.
Score!
Thank
Touchdown!
you. And I'm still getting the blockage here, but my shakiness is gone. So maybe that helped.
Thank you. That's absolutely. We are the effect. We are not the cause. We are the effect. We move as the effect of God. And when we align as consciousness, as all that is, we are God. We are that. Right. The ego says, no, 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 no. I'm the cause. I'm the cause. It's having its own little birthday party. It will never be true. Seek, but never find. That's the whole thing. Seek to be your own cause. You will never find it. Stop seeking and be what you are. You are the effect. I am the effect. We are the effect. What a power that is when we actually acknowledge that. Right? What a friggin' blessing. Livy, I get so excited.
It is exciting. It is exciting. So I was glad Kendall said what she said, because so much of throughout my life, the fear has manifested in the form of anger. And that really, I mean, for decades, and to the point that at one time it was like rage. And talk about a false sense of power, you know, that'll do it every time. And I can feel, especially, it's been interesting to understand that the tightness, so much fear has manifested in different places in my body, and in particular the solar plexus. And, you know, at the beginning of this talk, I could feel my solar plexus going, all right, we're going to constrict here. This is, you know, not sure, you know, I'm going to hold on to you. I'm going to hold on to you, you know, and recognizing that I don't have to, my body doesn't need to protect me anymore. I trained it to protect me and stay in defense mode all the time. So that's why I have the digestion issues and stuff. And it's when I'm fully in the neutrality that my body is neutral and the space opens up in my solar plexus. And so it's been interesting, you know, and when you had us look around, and I'm looking around, and I have a story for like everything that I'm seeing, you know. I actually have clothes that I will not wear because something bad happened when I wore them last time. So the reason something bad happened was because I had that shirt on. So I'm not going to wear that shirt anymore. Talk about cause and effect, and, you know, so it's just, I just love all this to make, for lack of a better way of saying it, to make sense of, you know, letting go of the stories. There is no story. It's just, it just is. And so for, you know, and so it's interesting for me to recognize how fear has the different ways that fear and hurt, you know, have manifested itself in anger, in constriction, in the need to control, you know, and recognizing that, and I was talking with Rana about this the other day, recognizing that, where, the thought just was, recognizing that my biggest fear, you know, being able to name it, because my body is just a set of reactions, and I am just now having an opportunity to recognize the thought behind the sensations of my body and get clarity on that. And, you know, one of my biggest fears has always been that if something really bad happens, I'm supposed to know what to do. And even though I don't know what to do, but I'm supposed to know what to do. And the fear is I won't know what to do. And it kept me from asking for help. It keeps me isolated, you know, instead of being with wonderful groups of people like this that help me understand it and open up the space. And so I feel I'm maybe rambling right now, so I'm going to stop. But, you know, it's just so, this is just absolutely so huge for me to, you know, to recognize the thought, so I can recognize and say, that's not true. You know, because when my body's holding on to it, it's like, what are you holding on to? What thought, what conditioning, what belief, you know? And so this is just extraordinarily helpful, just
Mm.
really, really helpful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for really articulating well about how the body really holds the fear. And why not? We have created a world where we seem to be bodies, right? We seem to be these bodies. And so we need to protect the body. And when is the only time that someone who is vulnerable and small can actually attack something that is larger than itself? Fear. Fear pulls the adrenals into defense mode, and that's when a mother lifts the car up above her child, right? And does things that normally the body would never be able to do. Or when the person that is the object of attack by another person that's stronger than they are actually defends themselves and gets away, you know? This is what my teacher Zoe was talking about. This is when fear comes, our true power. That's when we have access to our true power, or not our true power. That's not true. It's not true power, but additional power that we don't normally recognize in the day. We raise our vibration in a way, but it's temporary, and it's through the adrenal glands. And that's Kendall's point here in the chat. Anger or fear raises your vibration, but it doesn't sustain it, and it ultimately drains you through the adrenals. It is only love that has the higher vibration, that is maintainable. And in order to access that higher vibration and that love, we oftentimes have to pass through the fear, the valley of death, right? Because the fear is what keeps us on the other side. It keeps us on the battleground, right? We have to pass through that fear to rise above the battleground and see. And a lot of times that's just the experience of standing while fear, like a wave, approaches us and seems to want to bowl us over, and we let it pass through, and then we turn around and watch it go from out the other way. And we have to do that often, over and over and over again. I had to do that yesterday in that meeting. I was afraid in that meeting. I was afraid going in because I knew I would be afraid in the meeting. So I was afraid going into the meeting. And I have another meeting tonight, and I'm going to be afraid to go in that too. But you know what? I take all of you with me. I take these lessons with me, and I stand as the one who knows. I am the only one in that room who knows who she is. And I extend love to every other seemingly separate person in that room, because I know what I am and they are the same. And I extend my love to them, even in the fear, right? That's my job. That's all I know how to do. That is what I am as an effect of God. You know, maybe someday I'll be able to do better. Who knows? I don't know. Right now, that's the best I can do. And that is friggin' good enough. Right? Right? So, Alka, what you got?
Just something very mundane, actually. But you know how fear releases adrenaline into our body? And they say you function better as a result of it. So when people go on stage or they have to do something they don't enjoy, the adrenaline makes you more alert, more concise in your thought. And so it does have a purpose, this fear, because if you didn't have that, you wouldn't function as efficiently. It's very draining, but it does help you to function better.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to ask you if that is true. Is that really the ultimate truth? And I ask you because, and I'm sorry to,
No, not at all.
I hate it when people ask questions and then they talk over the person that they've asked the question to. That I find that that difficult. So let me just ask the question: is that ultimately true, Alka? And
ultimately, maybe not, but you know, when you go into an exam situation, for example, you function better if there's a bit of adrenaline in there. You relax once you I remember going, when I'm waiting outside to enter an examination hall, this would be a knot in my stomach. As soon as I was there and writing, I would relax and do well. But it does have a function. I do think fear does have a function. Not to, but I agree with you to give into it and put yourself into isolation. That doesn't work. Because Angelo DeLulo put it really, really nicely, that we let fear make us think that everybody is separate from us, smokes and mirrors, he calls it, that we think ourselves into isolation. Now, that doesn't work when we let our mind tell us that you have to defend yourself against this person or that person. That's not true. That's your mind lying to you and putting you in fear. But then there is a fear when you go into a meeting, it helps you to function better.
I'm going to just challenge you on that because,
Okay.
okay, I just ask maybe to think about this. Fear cuts us off from the all,
Yes.
right? It cuts us off. So while it may temporarily help us to focus, what would really deepen our the solution or our performance it would be to not use the fear, but to open to all that is and to seek guidance and attunement with that. So I'll give you an example. I have a friend who has ADHD and could not study for an exam, but he was really playing and experimenting with these spiritual truths. And so he went into an exam that he had barely studied for, if at all. And he opened himself up. It was a true false exam. So it was kind of a limited experiment. I think there were 100-something questions. And he opened himself up. And then he took the exam. And he felt his way through every single question. Is this true? How does it feel? Is true or false? How does it resonate in my body to mark one way or the other? Long story short, he got 100 on the exam. The professor called him in and said, "You're the only one that got 100 on this exam. I want you to retake this test. I don't believe that you I think you cheated." He retook it and he got another 100. So I just offer that as as an alternate way to think about it.
No, totally. I mean, you know, like I said, you can isolate yourself with fear.
Yes.
Because your mind lies to you all the time. But certain situations only where it has a function. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. I take that. I agree. And Livy just put, if a dangerous animal or insect appears and I need to avoid attack. Yeah. Maybe the fear has a function of really increasing your response time, right? Shortening
all.
your
Yeah.
response.
Yes. But you can't go through life being afraid. You'll make yourself ill.
Yeah. Wow. What a great discussion, Alka. Thank you for that. Much appreciated.
Can I add my 2 cents?
Yeah, but you didn't raise your hand, Cindy. Just kidding. Please do.
I'm listening and I'm just wondering about definitions. Like, what if the experience that Alka's describing is simply the feeling of an energetic contraction and focus that creates a clarity as we step into the exam. Like we're moving in, and the label fear doesn't land until the mind starts trying to figure out what the experience is. And so it's the same thing. If I am in the jungle and all of a sudden there's a tiger, the body can energetically stay focused and move in a way to keep itself safe. But why label it? The mind will take the label fear and cause it and create this sense that there's a problem and a contraction, and this is who I am. And this, like, what if we don't label anything as fear? Like, to me, like if the conversation is, I need to defend myself, and there's a chronic need to defend myself, that's a human basis of a fear, as opposed to the energy is shifting to respond to the current moment, which doesn't need to have a label.
Alka, you want to
Right.
respond?
Yes, please. Actually, Cindy, when you said that, it reminded me, I was reading John Klein's I Am, I think, book, and he said exactly the same thing, that you're in a situation, the body reacts to it without anything, and then the ego comes in and starts to put label on and tell you were scared, or you were this, or you were that. You've put your finger on it. That's exactly what he was saying. Thank
Beautiful.
you. Thank
Oh,
you for reminding me.
that's beautiful. Oh, I love us so much. Oh. I was going to say, and then Richard can come to the head of the table. I was going to say that in not every situation, because Alka and Cindy both correctly pointed out that what we call instinct kicks in, but there's nothing wrong with setting the intention to align with source before you go into a fearful situation, and then letting whatever arises arise. Richard, come to the head of the table. What a great discussion.
Morning, everyone. Great discussion. I'm reminded, though, I think in the previous meeting we talked about cause and effect, and basically said cause and effect are the same in reality. In other words, there is no difference. The only time we experience cause and effect is in the illusion. The idea that we separated from source. And what is the cause then? And what is the effect? And that's where we get confused. And that's, again, where level confusion comes into play. I think I like the idea of the 3 states Advaita teaches, where there is a deep sleep state in which the separate self does not exist. And then there is the dream state where thoughts arise in consciousness. And then there's the wake state, which the thought that arose in consciousness manifests in form and time and space. And that's the illusion. And the Course would say the final split of the mind, where the mind, after choosing the ego over the memory of oneness, and then there was another split, the final split, where the ego mind said, oh my God, I have so much fear and guilt that God is going to find out about my attempt to kill him, that he will punish me. So I want to make another split of the mind where I'm the innocent victim, and I'm going to project out of mind all the sin, guilt, and fear I believe is in my mind because I believe I separated from my source. That is the dream. In that projection, created all the universes and all the worlds and all the characters in the dream, which we are all representative of. And each of us have it built into our psyche because my understanding is our ability to rise above the battleground, leave the dream, reconnect with the only one, a child of God that believed it separated from source, get back into the right mind by going into the stillness. And then from that point of view, we can then extend the light and love we are into the dream, so that in the dream, all the different characters we represent can now perceive love, peace, and joy as a reality. So it depends on the level of what you're working on when you experience fear. The Course says there's only love or fear. So that's the only choice, the love or fear. So if you're experiencing anything other than love, you're in fear. So what fear is it? Now, the illusion is full of all ideas of what fear is. But in truth, there's only the fear of the original fear that the split mind had, that it was going to be punished for separating from source. Now, within the dream, you can be fearful of millions, trillions of things. And those fearful thoughts in your mind can then manifest in all kinds of ways. It can manifest as the way people treat you. It can manifest as physical symptoms within the body. It can manifest as psychological depression, whatever. Whatever you're. So I thought we had talked about this in numerous meetings before, but it's a really interesting discussion. And like Amy said earlier, we never really get out of it as long as we're in this dream. We have to deal with cause and effect all the time. And remembering what the real cause is really helps me. So I love you all. Great to be here.
Thank you, Richard. You began this your comments with, or your teaching with a really non-dual principle, and so I would love to bring us back to that in the last minute that we have. And I alluded to this in the beginning when we talked about cause and effect, because there really is no effect. There is only cause. To say there's a first cause and an effect would actually mean that source could separate from itself. There is no and, there is only Atma. Right? So A Course says the first split was consciousness itself. And we really get confused by this because, and I contribute to the confusion because I say consciousness all the time. And we often will use consciousness and source as the same thing. But A Course does not. It really says consciousness was the first split where pure being, and actually the non-dual teachings say exactly the same thing. Pure being, just awareness itself is the ultimate reality. That's the ultimate, just pure being. But self-awareness is that first split. When pure being says, I am pure being. That's consciousness. That's the first split. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine. But that gets us back to cause and effect. There's only one, and we are that. right? We are that. Thank you, Richard, for bringing us full circle. Well, when Cindy turns off the recording, I will use Car Talk's famous. Are you familiar? You guys familiar with Car Talk? Any of you? Okay. I don't want to be on. Well, now that I've made the caveat, the Car Talk Click and Clack would say, "Well, now that you've wasted a perfectly good hour." But I don't want to say that because we haven't. Oh, love us. Thank you for being here and thank you for your presence.